Joining us now is George Bud Ivey with Ivey International. Thank you for joining us today.
Happy to be here.
So, if we just wanted to start off by having you tell us a little bit more about yourself and how Ivey International got started.
Yeah, that's a great question. Ivy International is now currently going into its 32nd year of operations, so pretty proud about that. Um, my background, to tell you a little bit about where I came from and how I got into this, I'm actually a synthetic organic chemist by training, going back to the 1980s, went through organic chemistry. And then after I concluded that, I walked across campus and did geotechnical engineering because I wanted to get an appreciation for geology and engineering. And at the time, it was a bit challenging because you're pretty broke as a student. But I fast forward to now, combining that chemistry background with geology and engineering has actually paid huge dividends. It's resulted in many trademarks and patents and processes. But I think the key thing that I bring to the sector is a really strong fundamental understanding of the chemistry, and all the contaminants of concern are chemical. And yeah, so that's been helpful and for me to just understand how they behave, their tendencies, and how I may be able to find ways to manipulate or alter that to enhance remediation of contaminated sites or decontamination of surfaces.
That's awesome. Well, I understand that you have this new product you would like to talk about today called PFAS Soul. So, could you just tell us about what motivated you to develop PFAS Soul and how it addresses the limitations of traditional PFAS remediation methods?
Yeah, so I've always been aware of PFAS as contaminants of concern. This goes back to like the banning of Scotchgard back, I think that's around 2000 to earlier. Again, being a chemist, we're usually aware of things long before the general public is, and it takes a while before these things get regulated. So again, that's been a pervasive concern of mine for many years, to the point where I actually use cast iron cookware and stuff like that at home because I don't want non-stick cookware. But it was actually in early 2019 that Dr. David Holmes and Dr. Cecilia McLeod at the Greenwich University near London, England, approached me about doing some research work. They were aware of the work that I'd done with Ivy Sol and, improving remediation contaminated sites. Said, could we do a research project to enhance the remediation of PFAS, or mass removal from soil, bedrock, and groundwater? And of course, I was quite interested. So that kicked off in 2019. We all know what happened in early 2020 with COVID. The only good thing is that grad students that were engaged were still going to the lab, probably wearing their masks and then pulling them off when they got there and doing their work. So we kept doing that work through to 2023. And the good story is that we actually showed a real strong capacity for moving PFOA and PFOS related compounds from C4 to C12. That capacity was really important. And the results we got were so impressive, in fact, that we've applied for a provisional patent in August of 2023. I did a provisional because we wanted to do ongoing research to expand the capacity of the technology. So not just soil, bedrock, and groundwater. And again, it's mass removal. It's the only technology that I'm aware of globally that can do this. Others are trying to inject products to like hold it or stabilize it. I call it like setting up a little bit of a prison in there. I think in cases that technology could be effective, but the idea being to remove that mass so it's no longer there and the associated risks are gone, I think is really the key part of our advantage. And then the extra research that we did in like in 2023 to 2024, started looking at contaminated PFAS surfaces, with one standing out very strongly being like the AFFF fire suppression systems, which are at every refinery, bulk storage, a lot of industrial commercial sites, refineries, petrochemical, what have you. There's literally hundreds of thousands of them around, and they need to be decontaminated. And we actually showed a very, very effective capacity for this too. And there was some work done by Scott Pointer with a company called GST out of Dallas, Texas, working for some major oil companies. And they showed a capacity for 99.99998% mass removal of all these PFAS from C4 to C12. So it was just, yeah, so that was it. So just the whole idea of just coming up with something that could resolve this.
That's awesome. Do
Yeah.
you have some examples of where PFAS Soul has been used and how it's been used?
Yeah, so right now, I can basically speak to what's public domain. That's one of these things that happens. Our clients, until they give us consent, we can't talk about things. So whenever I'm giving presentations, including like last week on the Focus Mediation Seminar, I'm often talking about what's in the public domain, or you can see it's really coming close to that door. I can talk about it. So we've had, again, AFFF fire suppression decontamination. We have some clients that love using the product for decontamination of their field equipment, but to our surprise, they're using them to even clean buckets of excavators, loaders, the truck beds of trucks between soil loads. If they're on a site they suspect PFAS, they want to clean that before they go because they don't want cross contamination. And then we have clients that are doing a lot of research work from the United States to Europe to Australia with our products to see if we can improve various processes that they want to scale up from in situ remediation to soil washing. A more specific response to your request is we have clients that are engaging that now. All I can say is that we're getting some really nice results. It's not in the public domain, but I would suspect that if you were to see a presentation from me by autumn of this year, you'll say, hey, I'm seeing some new case studies we never saw before. And it's just this whole idea of letting them get out there. In some cases, there's some data that'll come from grad students' publications. Others will come from just clients that are doing some public domain applications, even here in the United States, including some very significant contaminated sites. And some of that will then automatically be in the public domain.
So, how does PFAS Sol compare to PFAS remediation technologies in terms of cost, efficiency, and environmental impact?
Yeah, it's a great question. As far as our costing of our products, it's not too dissimilar from the other product lines that we currently have, which it's funny. I had a call with somebody yesterday in Europe, and they thought for sure that we're now that we come up this very innovative solution for PFAS, that the product will be much, much more expensive. And they're surprised that we haven't done that. We are charging more because at the end of the day, when you're manufacturing something, if the input costs are higher, you have to sell it for more. Obviously, there's some aspects like that. What we found is we look at like the Ivey reputation, where there's a lot of sites out there that are running 10, 20, 30 years for remediation. I would say our average over the last 25, 30 years is actually well under 2 years. And I would probably say the average is under a year when in good hands and people apply it properly. I think the key thing with us not only is our product sold as a concentrate, which you can dilute sometimes as much as 99% with water for applications, or maybe 96 would be the strongest I would do for a dilution. So a little goes a long way. So that aspect we're cost effective. And the other thing too is where there's people that are doing like pump and treatment to contain and control the PFAS on their site so that liability doesn't move. They can do that. That'll take a very, very long time, as we know pump and treatment is. But if we put our products in there and we can enhance mass removal, then they can take that mass that's in the ground, presenting that risk, and lower it. So speaking of that risk issue, we can lower the risk, and maybe to the point where maybe if that's not moving, they can close it by a risk assessment. Or something that's been popping up in discussion is where there's sites where there's high PFAS concentrations, we may get used to lower those, and then somebody may put in a product to stabilize it to control the remaining. And we've done some stuff with Ivey like on sites with L-Napple or D-Napple, where we've gone in and removed that mass, and then someone's followed up with like absorptive technologies like Boss 200 to then tie up the remaining very successfully to site closure. So I would say that the fact that we can remove the mass versus leaving it there and trying to tie it up, we create a kind of a paradigm shift in the approach for PFAS remediation. And the nice thing for a lot of our clients is it's very much akin to stuff that we've been doing before. So it'll be an easy transition to go from having worked with us with Ivey to say, hey, you've been doing all that for petroleum hydrocarbons, chlorine solvents. Now you got this new product for PFAS. Is there a whole new learning curve? No, a lot of it's the same as what we've been doing as far as our techniques. So I think market uptake is going to be pretty smooth.
That's great. Could you
Yeah.
tell us where customers can go that are interested in using PFAS Sol or have questions based on their situation where PFAS might be present?
Yeah, so obviously they can get a hold of us regardless of where they're at in the world because we have distribution. We also collaborate with Field Environment Instruments. So our part of our goal in 2025 is to have you guys set up to actually be able to provide that locally to the marketplace. Although you provide a number of our products now, I think step one is reach out to us so we can learn about your product. Sorry, about your site, I should say, so that we can determine what's the best approach and give you some advice. And then from there, once we got that kind of figured out, then we can say, where are you going to source this from, right? Whether it comes from us, it might be somebody who's, for example, maybe they're in Europe contacts. Well, obviously, I would probably send them towards a European supplier. If it's in the States, eventually we'll be having them deal with you guys. And at the end of the day, we just want to make sure they have what they need to clean up the contaminated sites.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, George. We really appreciate you taking the time here today to tell us more about PFAS.
No problem. Happy to do it.